Hello guys, today is Sunday, and of course as a trader it's important for me to understand exactly where price is heading based on the specific pairs of interest that I have in mind. Okay, so in this case you realize that in most cases I usually trade Euro USD. That is my favorite currency pair. So and I usually employ time frame analysis when it comes to understanding price direction. So this is Euro USD, and by employing top-down analysis, I just mean that I'm trying to understand each time frame's price direction, because there has to be a similarity. So I'm scaling from the monthly to the lowest time frames, just trying to understand exactly what price is telling me. So this is the monthly time frame, and we had a clear divergence from a small inversion here. There was an inversion. Why? Because this bearish candlestick failed to push prices lower, right? And of course, as a result, later on we had this fair value gap. So this fair value gap was offered at this point here. So I'm building my basis or my context from that monthly fair value gap, right? This one here. So looking at it, just a moment, let me increase the font size. This is the fair value gap, and once you understand exactly where a fair value gap has been offered, the next thing you're looking for is which is the right liquidity that is going to be rated or going to be drawn. So from what we have here, I believe this is the right area of liquidity, because if you look at this point, this one here and this one here, it creates a range, right? We have this low and we have this high, so we are inside a range. And at this point here, we can see some high resistance. So clearly, we are pushing towards this area of liquidity there, which we can now refer to it as buy side liquidity. So that is buy side liquidity. So that is the right area of interest, this one here. So let me just, I prefer more grays than really, I don't like dark colors. So just that is just my interest. Okay, that is just my interest. So from the monthly time frame, I believe that prices will be going higher. Prices will be going higher in that manner. That is what I see. So after that, of course, I'm not a swing trader, I'm not a position trader, so I don't trade from the monthly time frame. So this is not enough. I am a day trader or a scalper. Sometimes I scalp, sometimes I day trade. So I will have to scale to the lower time frames, like the 1 hour, the 15 minute, the 5 minute, or the 1 minute, to find perfect entry opportunities. So right now I'll just scale to the monthly time frame to have a clear context of what the monthly time frame is telling me. And of course, this is buy side liquidity, so nothing is changing. What you're just doing is introducing more key elements that will guide us in terms of where price is heading. So from this monthly fair value gap, you can see price respects that monthly fair value gap, and then we are now pushing higher, right? But then from the weekly time frame, if you look at last week's view, we did not have a context on the weekly time frame, but this coming week we have a context on the weekly time frame. And one thing I want everyone to understand here is, or what I do is, first I need to understand price action, right? And from what we have here, you can clearly see that we are going lower. We were going lower. So we had this sell side liquidity at this point. So that is sell side. That is sell side liquidity. Bottom right. Yeah, that is sell side liquidity. Let me just increase the font size. Just a moment. Sell side liquidity. So you can see this was the area that was already this one here, right? So the next thing that comes into my mind is, where is the range? So if this is the low, then definitely this becomes the high, right? Because I'm looking at price action. So as a result, I have in mind that from this low, we are now going higher. But then as we go higher, you realize that at this point here, we had a beautiful inversion. So we had this beautiful inversion at this point here, and what happens from that inversion, price was able to go higher. But then for me, inversions are not enough. I need to have a clear displacement with a fair value gap, and I'm able to see that at the moment, because from what you have here, these are intermediate high. This one is an how can I put it? This is an intermediate high, okay, an internal high. You can see clearly at that point there, price was able to raise this intermediate high, or how do I put it? How have I called it? It's an intermediate high or an internal high, right? Because this is an internal price action. So this internal high has been rated at this point here, and we can clearly see that by Monday we'll have this as a fair value gap. It's no longer an anticipated fair value gap, but rather a clear fair value gap that has been formed. So that is a new, let me just put it here, that is a fair value gap, right? So you can clearly see how I'm trying to dissect and understand exactly what price is doing. So on the weekly time frame, we have this fair value gap, and of course we have different types of fair value gaps. What I see here is a normal fair value gap. I call it a normal fair value gap because high probability by tomorrow, which is Monday, this candlestick will have closed at this point. So this becomes a normal fair value gap. So if I indicate it as a normal fair value gap, this is what I'll do. A normal fair value gap. So this is a normal fair value gap. So what is my anticipation? Now, since this is an intermediate high or an internal range high, right, I expect, or what I'm clearly looking at right now is this scenario that we have these low, right, and we have this high at this point here. So clearly we have a low, we have a high. So what happens if price decides that it is willing to respect this fair value gap at that point? Then definitely we expect this high at this point here, which is a buy side liquidity will be rated. That is my view. But then we are not yet sure if this is going to be the right high, because price has not yet respected this fair value gap. If it respects that fair value gap, then we'll consider this as the right high. So we'll give price the benefit of doubt. At the moment, we don't know, but of course this is a high. By just looking at it, this is a high, but we have to basically understand if price is willing to go lower and respect this, then this qualifies as a high. At the moment, price can decide to even go higher and higher and higher. However, based on my understanding, hypothetically, we should see prices going for this fair value gap below here. And of course, from this range, look at this range here. So we have this point there, and we have this point here. So since we are inside that range, even though this one is an intermediate high or an internal range high, I expect prices to even go up to this level. If that is there, if price respects this fair value gap, price can go for this high and this high here. So this is also an area of interest. So that is also another buy side liquidity level. So yeah, so that is the situation at the moment. So if I increase the font, if I zoom in, that is how it looks. If I zoom in, that is how it looks. So that is not enough, of course, but at the moment my view is if price respects this level, then we expect higher and higher prices. So what do I do? Just by employing time frame analysis, I now scale to the daily time frame and just repeating the same thing. So on the daily time frame, once again, we have those liquidity pools. We have this liquidity pool here, and then we have this most recent liquidity pool. You can now clearly see that this is a beautiful high. So the question is, what am I anticipating on the daily time frame? Now listen guys, it is important for me to take into consideration that if you look at the daily time frame, after the raid of this high, there was a high at this point here. Let me just, that is a draw on liquidity. After that draw on liquidity, which is buy stops or buy side liquidity, we had specific fair value gaps that were respected here, and the last fair value gap that was respected was this one here, this one. This is where we are, right, on the daily time frame. So let me use a different color just to create that difference. So this was the fair value gap that was respected, though this is the weekly fair value gap. This one is the weekly. It has not yet been respected, okay? But then this one, being the daily fair value gap, has been respected. So there are two scenarios that could happen here. I don't see a scenario where price is willing to go low on the daily time frame. And the reason for that is because if you look at it, after respecting these fair value gap here, which is a breakaway gap, you can see price is going higher, and we have a lot of liquidity here. So price can decide to go higher towards this liquidity even before it gets to this weekly fair value gap. That is a scenario that I have in mind, okay? I'm just trying to dissect and understand exactly what price was doing. So that is a breakaway fair value gap that was respected at that point. So that is the scenario. You look at it, yeah. So we have a breakaway gap that was respected here, and price can go higher and higher. It can extend higher. So we can see two scenarios here, that price can decide, because it has respected that breakaway gap, it can go higher, or price can decide to go lower. But I don't see the reason why it should come for this level when it comes to the daily time frame. So is that enough? No, it's not yet enough, because I need to see exactly what price is trying to do. So if I scale to the 4-hour time frame, let me look at the 4-hour time frame. What do I see? So on the 4-hour time frame, what do I see? Because I'm just scaling to the lower time frames, okay? I want to understand exactly which time frame is building the context. That to me is very important, because yes, these other time frames are building context, but then there's that one time frame that will always build the right context. Now, when I look at the 4-hour time frame, what do I see? So the daily fair value gap, this one was the daily fair value gap, was respected at this point here. And right now, I want to basically understand what is happening. So clearly, price has been respecting these lows as we go lower. These was a low here. It was respected, we went lower, and then we had this raid of sell side liquidity at this point here. And once again, you can see we had a beautiful fair value gap here that was respected, and then price was just going lower. And then after raiding this other low here, we now have that beautiful inversion, right? We have that beautiful inversion. Now, from this inversion, do I really anticipate that price has to go higher? If I employ the idea of inversions, then I expect prices to go higher. If I employ the idea of inversions, then I expect prices to go higher. However, as well, there's a mechanism that I usually use, that if you look at this point here, while price was coming for this fair value gap, you'll realize that this candlestick was expanding towards the farthest fair value gap. This was the farthest fair value gap, this one here. As price was coming towards this fair value gap, we do not have any other lower fair value gap. So it's giving me a 50-50 scenario. We could witness higher prices, or we could witness lower prices. So at the moment, I don't need to scale to any other time frame. I'll leave it at the 4-hour time frame, because I believe the 4-hour time frame is giving me a 50-50 scenario. But the daily time frame is telling me that you should extend higher. The weekly time frame is telling me that you have a fair value gap that is supposed to be respected. So when it comes to Euro USD, I'll give it more and more time. But then let's now finish up with the 1-hour time frame. From the 1-hour time frame, what do we see from the 1-hour time frame? On the 1-hour time frame, what do we see? Nothing much. I don't want to even rely on the 1-hour time frame. I don't want to rely on the 1-hour time frame because there's nothing math. But then you can clearly see a bullish scenario. But at the moment, I don't want to rely on the 1-hour time frame. So that is it for now. Keep following me for more content, and thank you for watching.